Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Wesley Hunt just brings the hammer down on Socialist Squad member Jayapal, and boy, does the rest of Congress need to hear this. Let's dive in.
Trump has a long and documented history of attacking the judiciary simply for following the law. He once suggested that a judge who granted class certification in a fraud case against Trump University could not be impartial because the judge was of Mexican descent. He called other judges, quote, crooked, corrupt, and evil. And most recently, he refused to comply with judicial orders, blocking the implementation of his unlawful funding freeze. My colleagues on the other side have unfortunately endorsed this behavior, and now they propose legislation that would further empower President Trump to evade accountability in the courts. In May of 2024, Donald Trump was found guilty of 34 felony charges under New York state law for falsifying business records to conceal hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels. Republicans believe that this prosecution was politically motivated and corrupt, but they seem to forget about the role of a citizen jury, which came to the ultimate unanimous conclusion of Donald Trump's guilt. And once again, to confirm, did the citizen jury, this genius system that you've described, unanimously conclude that Donald Trump was guilty of 34 felony charges?
With respect to each of 34 charges.
Each one. Protection against tyranny. That's really what we're talking about here, and I really appreciate your input, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I recognize the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, the past few years, the left has used every weapon, including weaponizing the Department of Justice against President Trump. But of course, they didn't stop at the DOJ. The left used state and local prosecutors to do their biddings as well. Do you remember the so-called hush money case in New York? This is the case that was led by Matthew Colangelo, the former number 3 at the DOJ. That's right. A high-ranking DOJ official left his job to work for a local DA's office. That's pretty ridiculous and does not pass the smell test to anybody that's competent. And of course, there's the so-called RICO case in Georgia, as if this guy was Al Capone. Thanks, Fannie. And then there's Tish James. She ran solely on prosecuting Donald Trump. Now, isn't her main job to protect New Yorkers? She was clearly distracted. And you cannot tell me that these cases were not politically motivated. And if President Trump were not running for president again, none of this would have happened, period. None of this would have happened. What people have got to understand is that this is really, really good for fundraising for Democrats. But I'm going to say the quiet part out loud here. They want the veneer of legitimacy. You may have forgotten this, but again, they threw everything at President Trump. They impeached him twice. They tried to remove his name from the state presidential ballots. They laser-focused Lady Justice to eliminate the competition. And how did he survive this? Because he is clearly not like the average person. He is a political force of nature. What happened over the course of the past 4 years to President Trump should shock everyone in this country. Because one thing he would always say on the campaign trail was this: if he could do it to me, they could do it to you. I'm just standing in their way. This is repulsive behavior that we saw from the left to prevent a man from becoming the president of the free world. And guess what happened? We, the people, saw right through the crap, and we still made him our 47th president. Thank God for the resolve of the American people.
Wesley Hunt is absolutely right and hits a home run, but there's one thing I do want to add to this that I think that he missed. I think Democrats still would have gone after Donald Trump even if he wasn't running for president again. I think they still would have done it because they made it such a part of their platform in 2020. They are out for blood. They hate the fact that a it's no longer just right wing. It is now a centrist, cross-party lines populist movement has finally outflanked and even politically checked the Democrat Party. They might even be in checkmate. I think they still would have gone after him. But folks, let's just pull up a scorecard here and take a look at what happened with all the people that has been mentioned that have gone after Donald Trump at the behest of the DNC and the Democrat Party. All right, let's start off with Fani Willis, who, if she had done anything except hire the prosecutor with whom she had been sleeping, would have had a decent shot at really making a dent into President Trump's potential. But they had to throw it out of court because she did something beyond stupid. So far, 0 for 1 here. Then you have Letitia James, as it turns out, might not even live in the state of New York, and there's an ongoing investigation on whether or not she might have cheated on her taxes. So it's either she lied about her home address, or she has done something illegal with her taxes, and it looks like it's going to be either or in this case. So yeah, 0 for 2 there, Democrats. And then Alvin Bragg, the district attorney for New York City, I believe, made it his mission to go after Donald Trump, and that's how he got into office. He's a Soros-backed DA, but to make matters worse for this dude, to make matters much, much worse, this dude decided to instruct a jury to throw out pieces of information that the other prosecutors who had that same information said, no, this is too airtight. We aren't going to bring up charges against President Trump because no one in their right minds would convict based off of this. So, at best, it's 0 for 2 with one batter still at the plate who just hit a foul ball. All right? That's not a good track record for the Democrat Party. And then you have a state like Colorado trying to kick Donald Trump off the ballot. Now that he's president, he's been able to go into Aurora, California, and be able to root out members of Tren de Aragua, which were quite literally holding entire areas of apartment complexes hostage. Ladies and gentlemen, the president who was going to be kicked off the ballot has been able to make Tren de Aragua a terrorist organization and is now cleaning up the state of Colorado. If that's not magnanimity in politics, I don't know what is. If I'm president, I'm going to be scratching my chin and just reminding myself, weren't these the guys that tried to make it illegal for me to run? And now he's helping out that state better than any president has probably since it got created as a state to begin with. That's quite the track record there. And so that's what happens nearly every single time someone has brought up a major case against Donald Trump. It's either thrown out in disgrace or he has shown magnanimity now that he is president. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what an American president is supposed to do, and you still have people like the Socialist Squad member Jayapal screeching from the rooftops and clutching her pearls about things which she does not understand, or in some cases, like, Kathy Hochul, she knows what the right thing is, but chooses to do the opposite because she enjoys the chaos. She enjoys doing the wrong thing. I can believe that about Jayapal, that this woman wants to undermine and strip the United States of the very things that makes it strong, which, ironically enough, she has the gall to bring up in her speech, talking about the brilliance of an American justice system where you have a jury of your peers. That is a brilliant system to some degree. It is. Sometimes juries do get things wrong, though. It happens. That is the issues of the fall of man. But to make matters even weirder, she has the gall to say that's the strength of the American system, when it's the very thing that woman wants to dismantle brick by brick. This is what socialists and Marxists do. They want to dismantle things from the left side of the political spectrum and then institute their own utopia. The problem is the very bricks that they are hurling at the cops are the ones that they think are going to lay the foundations of a new building. That's not how building works. That's how destruction works. That's how chaos works. The only time chaos has ever worked has been after the Big Bang, where eventually gravity starts forming certain things here and there, and even those theories are really hard to actually understand now that we have, some more quantum physics, some more information on how the universe works. It is mind-boggling what is out there in space and time. So we as humans do our best to understand the world we're on, and the world that we're in has a legal system that for the most part has thrown out every single case against President Trump, and yet here is Jayapal trying to tear it down while somehow simultaneously praising it. Nothing about that makes sense unless you want to see the destruction of this system. And meanwhile, Wesley Hunt is reminding the members of Congress and the American people that we rejected this nonsense and chose a president who seems to care more about rooting out violent illegal immigrants, for instance, with groups like Tren de Aragua, and actually clean up the very areas, for instance, in a state that tried to kick him off of the ballot. That is what it means to be an American president and not a partisan one. But I don't think the Democrats can see that nuance in any way, shape, or form. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.